He says the judge ruled against him in light of his anti-Mexican proposals. Mr. Trump isn't unique in attempting to intimidate the federal judiciary in the case. Other private citizens have tried to pressure the judiciary from time to time, but not private citizens who are placed in close range of the White House by one of our great political parties. It's one thing for a private citizen to attempt to throw his economic or political weight around as an unelected official, to try to influence, help him demolish his adversary, a phrase often used by this particular fellow in the judicial proceeding. It's quite another thing for the presumptive candidate of a major party to do the same thing. Up to now, you may say, well, Joe, and folks, I have not been out responding to, in my capacity as vice president, to anything that Mr. Trump has said. But it's my view that a presidential candidate who publicly attacks a sitting federal judge who ruled in a way that was against his own economic interests cannot be trusted to respect the independence of the judiciary as a president. And again, you may view this as, I'm sure, for those who are saying, and with good reason, well, I think that's a particularly harsh judgment, but there's no real connection here. Let's look at what that presumptive nominee said. His own words. After calling the judge presiding over a fraud suit against him a total disgrace, Mr. Trump said, and I quote, these are his exact words, but, quote, but we will come back in November. Wouldn't that be wild if I'm president and I come back and do a civil case? He went on to say, and I'm quoting, wouldn't it be wild as president to come back in November to do a civil case? How can that be interpreted in any other way than as a direct threat? These are words of someone who sees our federal judiciary not as an independent branch of government, but as a tool for him to manipulate so he can do what he calls deal with the laws of our country. These are words, in my view, of one who would defy the courts if they ruled against him as president. Not just in a business case, but a case challenging government abuse of power. Raising the specter of, quote, coming back in November, quote, doing a civil case from the Oval Office is not so veiled a threat. It's a direct threat. And to use the office of the presidency, were he to acquire it, to intimidate and undermine an independent judiciary would be blatantly unconstitutional abuse of power. Either Mr. Trump, which is possible, doesn't understand. I mean that sincerely. He's a bright guy. I'm not saying that. I'm not pretending but he either doesn't understand because this is a realm in which he's never dealt before, or he doesn't care. That it would border on an impeachable offense for a president actually to use the great powers of the office to attempt to undermine a federal judge by placing pressure on that judge in any case, especially one the president has, in this case, a personal financial stake. This kind of conduct is pernicious and unprecedented.
Vice President Joe Biden speaking in Washington, D.C. David Gregory,